We have a couple things going on this week. On Wednesday at City Hall, our Made in Lansing exhibit is still in Lansing City Hall atrium. That'll be up through the end of this week. And on Wednesday...
so we have till when? Friday?
Friday.
Okay.
Yes. Friday at 5 o'clock. Actually, technically Monday at 5 o'clock when we start tearing down. But in conjunction with this, we've been doing a lunchtime series, a brown bag, if you will. And John Grettenberger, who is the CEO of Loran Oils, is going to become talking about his family business, which his grandfather actually started in Okemos several, 60, 70 years ago?
70 years ago.
Somewhere in there.
It is a fascinating business. I actually heard members of the family explain all of how that is done and how they got into it. It's actually a famous venue. There aren't that many places that do that.
No, they ship all over the world, actually. I had been buying their flavorings for years to make truffles every year at Christmas time. And then Bill finally said one day, that's in Lansing, right? And I said, are you kidding me?
My mother used to cook with Laura.
Who did?
My mother.
Oh, really?
Back 40 years ago, 50 years ago. And those oils, at that time, you could only get them at a pharmacist.
Really?
It was strange, but I don't know why.
Well, and it's kind of where pharmacy and more maybe homeopathic healing meets.
Right, and essential oils.
Right,
and,
right. Peppermint, to soothe an upset stomach, these sorts of things.
Yeah.
And it actually turned out that the oils were being more profitable for the family than the pharmacy was that they owned in Okemos. And so where the founder had been just making oils for his own pharmacy, he actually decided to scale up production. And the company ended up moving from Okemos into Lansing. And today they sell both to the individual consumer, but they also sell to businesses around the world and have quite a list of clients. And some of it is oils that are used more for healing and health purposes, and then some of them are also used for flavorings and candies. And ice creams and those sorts of things.
And coffees.
Yes.
And they actually have quite a thriving business when those flavored coffees came in, developing those for the coffee line. Oh, so that's going to be cool. Will the people get to sniff samples? And
I don't know. I hope he'll bring some.
yeah, they must have a sniffing things.
Sample, yeah, that's a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
So that's Wednesday at City Hall at 12:10. That'll last about 20 minutes or so you can pop down on your lunch, learn a little something new about the city, and then head back to work. Then on Thursday evening at 7 o'clock, we're going to be down at the downtown branch of the Capital Area District Library, and we are going to be learning about Michigan State's campus as it used to be. Stephen Terry is a local postcard collector who has put together an excellent book, brand new, called Michigan Agricultural College Campus Life. Oh. He's looking at what campus was like for about 25 years, from 1900 to 1925, through the lens of postcards that he's collected. Some of them are real photo postcards. Some of them are hand-tinted. In the book, he's actually even included some of the messages on the back of the postcard that people can read.
Oh, really? So
Yes.
these were used postcards people actually
Absolutely.
used?
Communicated. If you're a poor student, a postcard stamp is cheaper
True.
than a normal stamp.
True.
And for a lot of these kids, this was their way to communicate with their family. And they would produce postcards that would be sold on and around campus. And this was how they acquainted their parents with where they lived and what they did. Because for some of these students in this time, mom and dad didn't jump in the station wagon and drive you to campus.
Right.
A lot of times you said goodbye at the train station and you came to East Lansing on your own. And so your parents have no idea what your dormitory looks like, or have no idea when you tell stories about classes in this building or going canoeing on the Red Cedar. So it was a method of communication on different levels, really.
Well, and the nice thing about a postcard is there's just enough space to say send money.
Exactly.
You don't have to write that long letter to mom and dad and tell them all the bad news about the grades and the rest of it. You can just say, please send more money. And that was, postcards
I've never
are really
come across a card like that yet, but I'm sure they're out there.
It's because the parents probably burned them when they got them.
Tell us more about real photo postcards and what makes them unique, because there's many in this book.
Real photo postcards are basically snapshots that were turned into postcards. Photography was all the rage in the early 20th century. Kids who had the money, a lot of them went to college with their little brownie camera that they took with them. And photography was everybody's hobby suddenly. Girls were scrapbooking with the pictures, and it was something to do. And real photo postcards are neat because they capture a real setting.
Right.
Sometimes with postcards, I work at the Capitol. There are a million postcards of the Capitol. In some of them, the Capitol dome is literally green.
Really?
Yes. You know, you're left at the mercy of the artist and whatever flight of fancy they happen to be on that particular day. But a real photo postcard is going to be black and white. There were a few that were hand tinted. And they're going to capture an actual place and time. And some of them are quite unique in the moment that they capture. Looking through the book, I saw one that was actually a bonfire that used to be held on campus each year. And it was actually colored this electric red.
Oh.
So you just feel like the whole thing is going to combust in front of you.
Now, did they include people in any of the pictures, or are they mostly scenics?
They did. There are people doing things, certainly. Those are going to be some of the real photos. A lot of times there'll be activities, canoeing on the river. Sometimes you'll see little people strolling down the walks. But some of the real photo cards, for example, here, this is actually a cattle judging that they're looking at.
Yeah, you should
and you
get
can
some of those for your project.
Yes, you can see all of these people
That's
sitting
probably
there.
in the pavilion that I've spent many days in. It's the old one.
You can see all these people sitting there ready to have their picture taken.
Yeah.
There's some real photo in there of some little children in a faculty member's pigsty.
Oh,
With
really?
little pigs. It's really cute.
Oh, that's great.
And of course, because it's Cow College, there's even a postcard of cows out in the dairy yard.
Oh, good. Oh, I need that. I need that, definitely. I'm still working on my cow project. I was just adding some photos to the mix.
I know this
the other day.
collector's got about 1,000 postcards.
Now, did he also go to the MSU archives and get some from there, or these
No,
are ones he had?
these are his photo postcards
So
in
this
his
is
collection.
his collection.
This is his collection.
Wow.
And there's a few cards from a couple other collectors that he did not have. His favorite cards, he told me, are the cards that show the semi-centennial with Theodore Roosevelt.
Wow.
And those are real photos
Wow.
of Roosevelt driving a Rio motor car from Lansing to, well, he didn't drive it. He was driven by Ari Olds.
Was he really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's hilarious. Oh, my God.
Well, and there was a huge
lot of
to-do
history
if
in
it
one
was going
car.
to be a Rio or an Oldsmobile.
Oh, a little bit of a battle over that.
Yes.
Oh. The campus was quite different in that era. I mean, so
Extraordinarily
what
different.
things stand out when you go through
The
that?
buildings are much smaller.
Okay.
They're largely brick and stone. They have a very classical look to them. That does not, however, mean they were all terribly well built. College Hall is probably one of the most famous disasters on campus. It was, I believe, the second building built, and it was said to be the first building in America dedicated to the teaching of scientific agriculture. So significant. However, from the day the building opened, the roof leaked, the plaster fell in chunks. It was a mess. And there is a story that during, in 1918, they were training war recruits who were going to go off and fight in World War I. And when the band played the national anthem, one of the walls in the building literally collapsed.
Oh, wow.
Which the Michigan State Band still claims credit for to this day.
They brought the walls down.
They did. The Walls of Jericho in East Lansing.
Well, when they took down Morrill Hall, Bill and I know that, I mean, the argument was that it was so poorly built that they couldn't rehab it properly, that some of those early buildings were really not done very well. So it wasn't a matter where you could green them up and make them last forever.
It's important to remember that when MSU came about and these early buildings were being constructed, it happened very quickly, and no one was quite sure how long the college was going to last. There were a lot of arguments over whether Michigan State should stay independent. Should it become a branch of the University of Michigan? Should it be a 2-year trade school setup? Should it be a 4-year academic institution? Does it make sense to train farmers in English and history and the humanities along the way? And I've often had the feeling that things were a little rough around the edges for quite a while out on campus.
When my students were doing a project looking at the history of food in the area, they took a look at the early life on campus. And when women first came here, their job was to do the laundry and do the cooking, and that was part of what they did. And the young farmers, many of them, the males who were here, were the ones raising food that they ate.
Yes.
So it was a very different atmosphere.
It was, and in that way, it wasn't the classical university
Right.
that some people think of when they think of a 19th century college. It was a place where you learned by doing. And quite frankly, if the laundry was going to get done, the students were going to have to do it. If there were going to be cucumbers pickled, it was going to be the students doing it. And part of it was intentional because
Yeah.
colleges like MSU, which of course wasn't MSU at the time, they were there to teach people that scientific advancement could better their everyday lives.
Right.
It was, for example, the idea of doing sort of housework, if you will. Domestic skills
Yes,
like cooking
domestic
and
science.
first aid was domestic science, absolutely. And it was only the most up-to-date modern women who worried about things like what kind of vitamins they were feeding their children in foods, and if they were preparing these in a way that preserved the vitamins and the nutrients and so on in them. This was not seen simply as housework for the sake of housework. This was taking science and using it to better your everyday life.
That many years ago that it was still the Department of Home Economics here. Then it became the Department of Human Ecology. They could keep the H and the E, and they didn't have to change
About
those.
70? About 1970?
You think it was that early
I think so.
that it became Human Ecology?
I think it was around in there, 75, 70 to 75, yeah.
Really? I thought it was later than that. That's interesting. But we saw that as an area worthy of study and worthy of perfecting how women took care of their homes, and they were the engineers of their homes in that sense.
One of the postcards that I like in there, because it shows something that you rarely see, is a 1913 postcard of the MAC band, which has an African American in it.
Really?
Yep, he was a percussionist.
Percussionist, one African American in that band. That's, people kind of don't know that went on back then. For sure, he didn't live in East Lansing, or on
We learned that,
or
didn't
on campus. He
Yeah,
probably
we
lived in
learned that.
Lansing, or at a local church. I think what people like about this too is they see the buildings that could have been,
Oh, absolutely.
and there is some sadness that they're gone. Because the whole circle is pretty much newer buildings now.
Yes. And it reminds you that just the entire scale of campus used to be so much smaller. I mean, today MSU is tipping the scales at what, 50,000?
Right.
It's larger than many towns in Michigan. But at one point in time, it was a much smaller university, much more intimate.
Yeah, you literally did know everyone on that campus when you were in 1913.
And
I'll
it-
bet you did.
It was its own community in the sense that the president lived right on campus, but all the faculty did too. When it was created, there was no East Lansing. There wouldn't be an East Lansing until the 1880s, even to begin with. And so if you wanted to teach there, you had to live right there on campus. You had professors living next door to students.
Was it still Cole's house back in that era? Is that house date all the way back?
It's an early house. There was a different president's house
Okay.
originally. It was actually designed by the same architect who designed the state capitol. And there was an entire row of faculty homes.
Oh.
And a lot of those in the 20th century became classrooms, and they were used for other purposes, and many of them today have been torn down. But there was sort of a little professorial neighborhood, if you will, right around where Cowell's house is.
So this is going to be Thursday night.
Thursday evening at 7 o'clock at the Downtown Capital Area District Library.
Okay.
That's on the corner of Capitol and Kalamazoo. The event's free. It's open to the public. We will have books available for purchase and signing.
Sounds cool.
It's going to be fun.
And the name of
He's
the
gonna-
author again?
Stephen Terry.
Stephen Terry.
He was the chief financial officer when he retired of MSU.
Oh.
He worked his way up after 30 years.
Oh, so he does have a real connection to the university.
Very much. His
Ah.
great-grandfather went there.
Oh, great.
That's how he got interested.
Oh, well, thank you very much.